If you have your Bibles with you, go ahead and open them to Genesis chapter 37. We are, Lord willing, going to finish what we started last week. I don't know what happened. We'll just chalk it up to time change last week. We'll just go with that because I can't think of any other reason why I ran out of time so quickly. I think we might have started really late too. That might have been another reason. But there are a few things that I want to cover, and you even have a bonus if we copied the outlines correctly. And I'll talk about the bonus on the back of your outline momentarily here. But Genesis chapter 37 is where we are. And this chapter, starting in verse 2, we mentioned it a few weeks ago, really kind of launches us into the next stage, into the next chapter, into the next kind of the last piece of Genesis as far as the last portion of it. This is kind of the generations of Jacob, I guess. So Genesis 37 verse 2, these are the records of generations of Jacob. Joseph, when 17 years of age, was pasturing the flock with his brothers while he was still a youth, along with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought back a bad report about them to their father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his sons because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a varicolored tunic. His brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, and so they hated him and could not speak to him on friendly terms. Then Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, "Please listen to this dream which I have had. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf rose and also stood erect. And behold, your sheaves gathered around and bowed down to my sheaf." His brothers said to him, "Are you actually going to reign over us? Or are you really going to rule over us?" So they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. Now he had still another dream and related to his brothers and said, "Lo, I have had still another dream, and behold, the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me." He related to his father and to his brothers, and his father rebuked him and said to him, "What is this dream that you have had? Shall I and your mother and your brothers actually come to bow ourselves down before you to the ground?" His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the saying in mind. Then his brothers went to pasture their father's flock in Shechem. Israel said to Joseph, "Are not your brothers pasturing the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send you to them." And he said to him, "I will go." Then he said to him, "Go now and see about the welfare of your brothers and the welfare of the flock, and bring word back to me." So he sent him from the valley of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. A man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field, and the man asked him, "What are you looking for?" He said, "I'm looking for my brothers. Please tell me where they're pasturing the flock." And the man said, "They have moved from here, for I heard them say, 'Let us go to Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers and found them at Dothan. When they saw him from a distance, and before he came close to them, they plotted against him to put him to death. They said to one another, "Here comes this dreamer. Now then come and let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits, and we will say, 'A wild beast devoured him.' Then let us see what will become of his dreams." But Reuben heard this and rescued him out of their hands and said, "Let us not take his life." Reuben further said to them, "Shed no blood. Throw him into this pit that is in the wilderness, but do not lay hands on him, that he might rescue him out of their hands to restore him to his father." So it came about when Joseph reached his brothers that they stripped Joseph of his tunic, the varicolored tunic that was on him, and they took him and threw him into the pit. Now the pit was empty without any water in it. Then they sat down to eat a meal, and as they raised their eyes and looked, behold, a caravan of Ishmaelites was coming from Gilead with their camels bearing aromatic gum and balm and myrrh on their way to bring them down to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, "What profit is it for us to kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him, for he is our brother over our own flesh. And his brothers listened to him. Then some Midianite traders passed by, so they pulled him up and lifted Joseph out of the pit and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver. Thus they brought Joseph into Egypt. Now Reuben returned to the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit, so he tore his garments. He returned to his brothers and said, "The boy is not there. As for me, where am I to go?" So they took Joseph's tunic and slaughtered a male goat and dipped the tunic in the blood. And they sent the varicolored tunic and brought it to their father and said, "We found this. Please examine it to see whether it is your son's tunic or not." Then he examined it and said, "It is my son's tunic. A wild beast has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn to pieces." So Jacob tore his clothes and put sackcloth on his loins and mourned for his son many days. Then all his sons and all his daughters arose to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. And he said, "Surely I will go down to Sheol in mourning for my son." So his father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianite traders, or the Midianites, sold him in Egypt to Potiphar, Pharaoh's officer, the captain of the bodyguard. Annabelle, if you don't mind putting the title of today's message on the screen, Joseph's rough start is kind of what we called it, I guess, as far as the overall message today. And we talked, I'll remind you what we covered last week. We talked about the fact that at 17, the first point, Joseph at 17 was favored by his father and despised by his brothers. And that's in verses 2 through 11. We talked about the fact that he was his father's favorite son, as identified by his tunic. But before then, we talked about the fact that he brought bad report about his brothers to their father. You know, it's interesting here, the text doesn't tell us what kind of bad report that he brought. But, you know, this type of report and doing this type of thing has never been considered a popular thing to do. It opens up the one who gives this kind of report to the charge of being a tattletale. But get this, the people that will call someone like that a tattletale are people that take evil lightly. Okay. And I think it's interesting that we have Joseph being introduced from the very first verses of his whole story, showing us that Joseph was faithful to his father. Those who would be leaders must prove to be faithful in small things, in smaller responsibilities. And so the story holds up this trait of Joseph as exemplary, someone who is faithful in smaller things. So I think it's interesting that we're kind of seeing that from the very beginning here. So again, the other thing that we kind of talked about last week is that Joseph is his father's favorite son. It's kind of sad because Jacob himself, Joseph's father, was raised and grew up in one of the families where